Good evening and welcome to Chasing the Facts. I'm Sam Chase, your host, and this is the fourth in a series of candidate interviews for the Chelmsford town election, which will be held on Tuesday, April 1st of this year. So we have already spoken to the selectmen candidates, we have spoken to the planning board candidates, we have spoken to the housing authority candidates, and now this is, we saved the best for last, right? This is the, oh boy, am I going to get in trouble for saying that. This is the school committee, and the candidates are Maria Santos, Doreen Deshler, and John Moses. And we have actually a contested race because we have three people, as you can plainly see, running for two seats, and these are full terms, full 3-year terms. Maria and John are incumbents, and Maria, you are running for your 3rd term, is that correct? And John, you're running for your 10th term or something.
Something like that,
yeah.
fourth.
4th term, okay.
Yes.
I lose track after 3.
Yeah.
So. And Doreen is the newcomer to the school committee race, all right? So what we generally do, folks, with these interviews is we allow the candidate a brief introduction, a self-introduction, and we'll get that from each of you, and then when that's finished, then we'll get into the discussion. So Maria, why don't you start us off?
Okay. So I'm Maria Santos. I've lived in Chelmsford for 37 years, which is about 1/2 of my lifetime and a little less.
You're still a blow-in.
I'm a very proud naturalized citizen of the United States because I came to the U.S. when I was 9 years old, and I became a naturalized citizen in my teenage years. I'm a first-generation college graduate and a graduate of Boston College Law School. I went to law school right after college. I've been an attorney practicing locally since 1988. And I think being an attorney means that, if you've seen some of these meetings I've attended, I like to think things through. I like to look at things from all angles and before I make a decision. I attended both public and private schools, but I'm on the Chelmsford School Committee, which means that I really believe deeply in public education. Everyone should have an opportunity for an education that the best dollar can buy. In 2000, I married a great person, Julio Silva. We have twin girls, Sarah and Elizabeth, and they're both in college right now. They'll be seniors next year. Yay. I became a really involved PTO member and then president of the PTOs, both at Center Elementary and McCarthy Elementary, while the girls were going from grades 1 through 8. When they entered high school, I did not join that PTO's executive board because I was then the president of the Council of Schools, which brings together all the PTOs. I really did have a great experience with my girls in our school system. It was 12 great years, and I thought a lot of great things happened on those 12 years and wanted to keep it going. I have extensive experience working on boards through the PTOs, but also through a financial institution. I was on the board of a credit union, which is a mid-sized level credit union. I was its first woman president, and then member of the ALCO and the audit committees. I've been a town rep for several years. I'm also on the committee for the American Immigration Lawyers Association, and I've been on the Revere College Advisory Committee for their paralegal studies program. I'm running for my 3rd term on this school committee because I would like to continue to see greater opportunities to enhance the student experience and the achievement levels for all different student groups in our whole district. I think I can offer my ability to work with others, compromise when the compromise is required, and to fight the good fight when it's necessary. And I want to thank you, Sam, for the opportunity to be here today. Thank you.
Well, thank you for serving and running again. Doreen.
Thank you, Sam, for having us here. My name is Doreen Deshler, and I'm running to represent your family on the Chelmsford School Committee. As a 36-year resident of Chelmsford and a mother of 4 children who attended our local schools, I have a deep connection to this community and a personal stake in our education system's success. I bring extensive qualifications to this role. I am a behavioral interventionist at Cortica Care, working with autistic and developmentally disabled children. I am a board-certified autism technician with a bachelor's degree in psychology science. My past roles include reading teacher / tutor and after-school program director for the Lowell Community Charter School. I was a substitute teacher in both Chelmsford and Billerica. I was an inclusion and support aide at the Murdoch Chelmsford Public School Charter School. It's not Chelmsford Charter School anymore, they moved to Tingsboro, but they used to be in Chelmsford, and I worked when they were in Chelmsford there. And I used to work with students with IEPs and 504 plans. I was also a longtime paraprofessional in the school special education class at the Dewtown Elementary in Billerica. If elected, I'll work to lift Chelmsford's rankings from Nietzsche's 45th in the state and U.S. News' 88th in the state, and here's how. I believe in going back to basics. I know we do teach the basics, but I think we need to get a better curriculum so the basics are taught a little bit better, so that these kids are coming out of our school system with high reading levels and high writing levels. And I want them to take math and science and social studies and technology and civics. And I also think that we need to have cursive writing, because without giving our students that opportunity to learn cursive writing, we're limiting them to what type of jobs they could have, such as they could never be a town clerk, because a lot of the old records, they're all written in cursive. They're all written in cursive. You need to, the Constitution of the United States, if everything goes down, all electronics go down, it's written in cursive. So you really need to learn how to write and read in cursive. I also was I said paraprofessional, right? Okay. Like back to basics. I also would support parental rights, ensure transparency, and answer about curriculum. I think the parents have a right to know all that. I would promote student readiness. I believe in holding students back if unprepared, rather than pushing them ahead to struggle. Teach resilience, how to win and how to lose. I oppose divisive ideologies. Critical race theory is in itself racist. It's divisive and harmful. It's wrong to label a student. I would like to keep transgender discussions out of our classrooms. It should be a family matter to discuss with parents and or doctor. Mind you, I have no idea if these subjects are being taught in our school system at this time, but if I am elected on the school committee, I will check out all of the schools. I will look in the libraries, I'll look in the classrooms, and see what type of books they have. But I didn't feel that that was my responsibility right now, because I don't have any children in the school system at this time. I believe parents have a right to go in and check, and I believe that the school committee has a right to go in and check, but just a regular, mediocre me going into the schools and say, hey, let me see your books. No, I don't think that's a good idea. But I believe to be in being fiscally responsible, and would protect $5.969 million in federal aid by adhering to the federal laws on DEI, critical race theory, and transgender policies. I want our students and teachers to have the resources they need to compete at the highest level, locally, nationally, and globally. Let's work together, and together we can build a stronger future for Chelmsford students. Thank you.
Okay. John?
Awesome, thank you. And so I'm over here, right? So everybody, John Moses. I am now running for my fourth term in the Chelmsford School Committee, and I've been in the town for about 12 years. I want to say that my experience in this town has been really something else. I only lived in the town 3 years when I came in and became a school committee member, mainly because we wanted to have full day kindergarten. And I learned a lot over that time, and learned you just can't come in and kind of make a demand and hope and pray that everything will be set up for you and ready for you. And I was very fortunate to learn that over time, and with a lot of work with the friends, you can accomplish great things. And we've had full day kindergarten now for quite some time. But I'm very fortunate to be married to a wonderful woman named Cindy Moses, who's very active in the PTO and still does work at the Byam, even though we don't have any kids there. I have a 15-year-old girl in the high school, Ella, and happy birthday, Ella. It is her birthday today. She's going to be so mad at me later.
Good for
and,
her.
Yeah, I know. She just turned 15, so it's quite a thing, freshman. And then my son, Ian, who's 11, and he's also in the Chelmsford schools in the 5th grade, and not in high school, fortunately, not yet. But yeah, so been 9 years in office. Outside of that, I run a nonprofit called Massachusetts Afghan Alliance. So we help with immigration work with local residents in Chelmsford and Lowell and other areas. And then I have a regular old corporate job that I work. But this year, we're running this year because there's been a change in federal government. We have questions of stability. We have a lot of questions about where we're going to go looking forward as a country and as a state and as a community. And I think good, experienced leadership is really what we need in the town over the next few years, and that's why I'm here. That's John Moses.
Very good. Well, great introductions from all of you. So, and that's wonderful because you've all answered the first question, which is why are you running? I mean, that's the very basic question that you would ask any candidate. So I'm going to depart a little bit here from the script because of something Doreen said, and we've got 2 veteran school committee people here with us. So the question is critical race theory taught now as a matter of curriculum in the Chelmsford schools?
It is not.
Okay.
That's awesome.
And I think it's there's a larger point to that, though. I think the larger point is that it's a state level issue, right? So when you're talking about curriculum, we have some choices in curriculum, like some of the choices within that box, but a lot of that comes down to the states. When we talk about things like CRT and coming in and changing curriculum, it's actually quite difficult.
Or
and
any curriculum change.
Any curriculum change is much higher than a local school committee member. So it is not being taught. That isn't something that is.
Whenever the term critical race theory is brought up,
Yeah.
I know when I was first introduced to that terminology, and that was in law school.
That's correct.
And
That's
that is exactly where it is and where it should remain, because essentially, in order to understand critical race theory, what you're looking at is an entire system and how that system is being impacted by systemic provisions that just don't allow people to move forward at the same equitable level. And that's a very hard thing to understand for children and for certain levels. So no,
It's hard to understand for lawyers.
Yeah.
critical race theory is not something that is part of the curriculum as far as I know. And I think that not everybody defines critical race theory the way it was intended and the way it was first introduced into the literature and into the terminology, into the legal system, really.
Okay, well, see, now we've got an answer. We've got an answer to that question, so that's good. So let's talk a little bit about what the school committee does, and maybe what some people would like to do and what some people shouldn't do, because this is always a conflict, I find anyway, with my level of experience in town government. You see it on select boards, and you see it on school committees. And many times you have a conflict between the school administration, which is your hired folks, the school superintendent and his staff, versus the school committee. And the question is, who runs the schools? Or in the question of the town, it's who runs the town?
Right.
So I'm going to start with Maria on this question. If you can explain to the folks how we're set up and what the intention is supposed to be relative to that tension between the school superintendent and the school committee in terms of day-to-day operations and actually running the system.
Right. So, I mean, everybody, of course, can pop in here, but this is
And let me interrupt you for
statutorily.
one minute. That's how we're set up.
Okay.
So anyone just wants to jump in and follow up on what the other person says,
Sure.
feel free to
Right.
do it. Oh,
It's
excuse
a
me.
statutorily defined role. It's defined in statute. What the role of a school committee member is, as far as I understand it, and when you become a school committee member, you go to a training session, an all-day event, where you are taught about, you're told once again what your role is. We essentially hire, manage, and fire or keep going with the superintendent, who is the leader of the administration of the school system. And so what does that mean? I think the most important role that I play as a school committee member for me is to actually review what the superintendent has or has not done in a particular year. And every year we get that opportunity. So I think one of the things you can do as a person who's going to elect is an incumbent might be to look back to see how we've reviewed the superintendent's performance. Many people think that we can make a decision about a student, where a student's going to be placed, what the student's going to do in school, what the schedule for a student is, and so on. And that is not something that we do. That's an operational thing, and so on, and we're not involved in that. The other thing is that it's really important. We should not know every single thing about every single student. It's a privacy concern, a very big privacy concern. And so we're not at that level of administering the small details that happen, although many times the small details should never become huge problems in the system. So I think part of our role is to make sure that if we know of an issue, if it's brought to our attention, that we bring it to the attention of the administration. And they need to look at it, examine it from all the perspectives, and get back to us on what's going on with that. Okay. But that's how I view
Good.
the role.
I got like that the role would be of the school committee is to establish and review the goals and policies consistent with requirements of law, statewide goals and standards of the Board of Education. We need to have oversight of the responsibility for the school system, the direction in which the system must go, and establish criteria to determine if its goals and policies are being met. So I agree that we don't have any correct contact with the students or know the students, that this is about, that would be the teachers and the guidance counselors and the school administrators to do, not us. It's our job to make sure that we have the best people in our schools and in our system and in our roles as a guidance counselor and so on and so forth, that they are the best that we can get. We need to find the best. That's why I don't like DEI, because if they don't go with the best, they go with who fits the profile. And I believe that we should be picking the best teachers, the best counselors that we can get. And that's about it.
Want to add to that, John? Or?
Well, I was just going to say, just to kind of tack on to what Maria said there. So, there are some primary roles to a school committee member. Right? So hiring, evaluating the superintendent, which is an ongoing process. We do that every year. It's not just, that yearly on paper either, because I can tell you that Dr. Lang has gotten some, he hears opinions from us, because we hear parents from opinions. But our job's really to hire him, and actually we just did his last contract, so he's here for the next 6 years, which I'm really happy to say. That was something that Maria and I both worked on. But then
You heard it here first, folks.
well, that's signed last year. So,
okay.
But we really are making a long-term plan as a school committee, and this is where experience comes in. So, Dr. Lang, who's been very successful as a superintendent, right? We've already hired him. We've been evaluating him for years, and so now what we've done as a school committee is said we're going to give him a contract that gets him all the way to retirement and gives Chelmsford an exit strategy on the way out. So on the last year of his contract, he can extend for a year, we can bring in people. The other part of that is policy management, which is how we manage our superintendent. Mm-hmm. So those policies that get put out, they're pretty boring, I get it. I know some people like policy, I'm a big policy guy. But that's the thing if say Dr. Lang ever stepped out of line or did something crazy, that's the policy hammer. You're like, okay, we'll just make it so you can't do that at all, right? Mm-hmm. And that's kind of your overall management. And then the other thing is budgets, right? So how are we accountable to the people and the taxpayers? And just to get people to understand is that our budgets are not just approved by the school committee. So as we're doing transactions, we're going in. All of the transactions that go out of a school building are reviewed by school committee members. They're reviewed by a business manager. They're reviewed by the town business manager, and then they're reviewed by outside outside entity. So there's a little bit more to the responsibility than just saying budgets. It's a lot more work. And then we also have, now if you talk about the leadership of the school and the operations, that's what we're talking about. I also think though that school committee members have a role in leadership within the community. So going to PTOs. So going out, listening to parents talk about what concerns them, right? Tell me about what's going on with your child that's important. Now, we may not be able to know students' names, but we can hear from the community and go back to the superintendent and say, hey, this is something I've been hearing. The communication was broken on this process. And we're really fortunate in Chelmsford, and I think the success of the students is what shows it in who we hired and how he's implemented the operations.
Yes, and Dr. Lang, I was reminded the other day, he's been with us for a little over 10 years.
Yeah, so he's 10, I'm 9.
It's time. I mean, time just goes too quickly, especially when you're my age. And you've sort of answered the question, but I'm going to double down on it anyway. So Dr. Lang's been here for 10 years. Maria and John, you've had the experience of being his immediate supervisor, and Doreen, you've had the experience of living in Chelmsford and observing. So if you all three could quickly answer the question, how do you feel Dr. Lang is performing, you from a school committee perspective and you from a citizen's perspective? So go ahead, Doreen, we'll start with you.
Okay, well, I would give our current superintendent an overall score of a B and a C on students' performances because of the low English proficiency scores at 58% and the low math scores of 53%. Westford is like 10 points over us. That's our next door neighbor. So I think we should at least be able to compete with Westford. I mean, so that's what I would give him. Yeah, I really believe that we can do better and we should do better. And I think that's why I give him a C with the performance. But B overall, because the schools are pretty well run and, you know, like you said, yeah.
So I think a superintendent role and finding a really great superintendent out there is difficult, very, very difficult. I think Dr. Lang has done great things with our budget. He has put us in a position where we can try to get to higher standards of academic performance because we're in a good budgetary position. If you go back to all the evaluations I've ever given, it's all about the academics, and those are always where I have scored them lower. And that's because, yes, we see what the scores are. But you have to put this very much in perspective, and I think, again, this is why it's important to have a little bit of the history here, and it's also one of the reasons why I want to continue for a couple more years here, is because I think we can get to that level again, but we've gone through a process now where our system has changed quite a bit. We've gone from 10 years ago having 8% of our student body be in the economically challenged part of the number of students. It's gone up to close to 19%. It's 18 point something percent right now.
That's huge.
That is a huge, huge shift. And I think that that's something very important for us to keep in mind. I know we don't want to hear about, you know, inclusion and all of these different things, but there is such a thing as equity, which I think is extremely important. And Dr. Lang realizes this. I also think the rest of the administration does, because that has been part of our strategic plan, which is in place right now, and working towards getting more equity in bringing those performance levels of those students with disabilities and in the economically challenged area to a higher level of equity. We still beat the state performance at every level. All of our students beat the state's performance, but we want the state level. But we want to get, of course, always keep moving forward and get it to an even higher standard when it comes to looking at our competitors, the people that we are working against here, because our students are going to be part of this competitive community. We've also brought in over the last 6 years, more than 6 years, greater number of students with disabilities into our system who have stayed here and are not going out of the town for their services. We have programs for children with autism. That, again, has been over the last few years that we've developed these programs and kept them here. That means that we owe an obligation to all the students to bring those levels up.
Okay, John?
So,
Yeah, so I think overall, Dr. Lang has done a great job. I think he's been very performant. There's always rooms for improvement, but let me kind of change that. So I'll put it in two ways, right? So Dr. Lang hires good people. So Dr. Linda Hirsch, who really does a lot of our curriculum work, and I do agree there's always room for improvement. But that's one thing I do like about Dr. Lang. Like if you went to him for a curriculum thing, he would just pull Linda in and say, hey, this is probably who you want to talk to. But in terms of a district, first of all, when times are really good in terms of money, right, which it has been the past few years, and I look at the superintendent and what he did with that, is he took that money and then using the legal methods and using some of the laws that are out there, we've actually been able to squirrel away some money for this kind of next uncertain period. I think if you go around the town and you talk to the parents that are here, you'll see that they're pretty generally supportive of the superintendent. He's willing to talk directly to parents sometimes. If somebody has a real issue and they email Dr. Lang will talk to them. And I think that kind of access isn't something you're going to get in a place like Lowell. I'm not sure if Westford's like that. But I think overall he's done just a really great job in terms of the operational side of things. But I also think he's done a great job of hiring. And we're talking about things like DEI. Again, I know people have different definitions of DEI. However, we're hiring right now, and we do hire very diverse teacher groups and different people. But again, I'm just going to point it out to the results. So in our comparative districts, so there are 10 districts that are very similar to us, even though we're below budget just a bit.
and Westford's not one.
And Westford's not one. We are regularly and across all subjects in the top 1 or 2. So I think we've actually, last year, we were like in the top across the whole board. So, my point though, I just want to wrap this up. So whoever we're hiring, whoever they are, I support them because again, the results show up in the numbers. So,
Okay, you wanted to make a
go ahead.
point?
Well,
Maria?
I think the other thing to look at is, in terms of net school spending, what we spend on a student, we're always in the middle of those that we compare that DESE puts down as our comparable systems. In terms of performance, among our comparables,
Yeah.
we're always higher.
Higher.
We're in the higher top
I
portion.
have
So
a
for the,
question on that.
Westford is not
let me
one
just
of our-
interrupt 1 second for the benefit of the viewers who may not know. Net school spending is defined as the amount that the state requires the district to spend in the aggregate total budget spending. So, and I believe, correct me if I'm wrong, you guys will know, I think we're roughly 33%
in the
higher than the net
so-
school spending, which number is lower than Westford, I believe,
Yep.
and not as high as some of the other communities, but a little higher than some of the other ones around us. Yeah. So that's what net school spending is. So I'm sorry, I just
Yep.
wanted to make sure
Yep.
people understood that.
We're
Yeah,
30.6%.
go ahead.
The only thing I had is they're saying that we're top in the state, but yet we got reports here from Nietzsche and U.S. News that we're 45th and 88th in the state.
I'd caution you on, I'm not sure about the first one, I haven't heard of them. U.S. News, you actually have to pay to participate in a lot of those,
Yes,
right?
that's
And if you
correct.
pay, you can get. So what I tend to look at is the DESE rankings. I tend to look at, if you really want to know if a school district's good, like, for parents out there, I want you to come to Chelmsford. So look at how we run our budgets, right? Look at how we're running your numbers. Look at how they're using your taxpayer money. There's a lot of ways you can kind of just tell if a school district's good. And I do think the school rankings have a place. I do not think 88th I think Chelmsford is one of the best districts in the state, not just by numbers, but just by the personnel that we have, by the parents that we have, and by the fact that we're Chelmsford. So I think U.S. News doesn't know anything about
Well,
us.
I would agree. I would, and this is a stretch for me to say because people know I'm a government skeptic, but I would support the state numbers because there is no benefit to anybody in the Department of Education not to have those numbers be accurate. Okay, and I trust the DESE numbers, I really do. And I'll just make one observation as a non-affiliated party here. As far as our state ranking is concerned, and I understand there's an awful lot of ingredients that go into that, but just very generally speaking, I notice that those districts with the most diverse student populations tend to be at the lower end of the scale, and it also has to do with the amount of money that's available within the district. And those towns that have more homogeneous populations and get more money tend to be at the higher end. So if you're looking at a city like Lowell or Lawrence, where you have just scads and scads of people that are, English is their second language, and they come from maybe more disadvantaged situations, those numbers are going to be lower, and because they need more help.
Yeah.
Okay?
Yes.
So, I mean, I think it's important to understand that. And Chelmsford, contrary to what some people think, you brought up the point. What was it, 19%?
It's 18, sorry, my glasses
the
again.
affluent column.
We're now
Correct.
at 19.9% in
All right, 20%.
students with disabilities,
Oh, okay.
18.4% with economically disadvantaged, and our ELL population is 6%.
That
6%.
That's-
Now, the reason we have been brought into this different comparison group is because of these statistics. So, for example, now, if you look at our budget that was published this year, you'll see this chart right in there. It's table 1. You're going to see that one of our comps now is the city of Newton.
Right.
Now, Newton has 11,752 students. We have 5130.
that blew my mind when I saw that.
I could
have
not
no say.
believe that.
No, I
But
know.
economically disadvantaged there is 13.4%, and students with disabilities is 18.6, and 7.2 is their ELL population. So therein
they're weighting that
lies-
criteria,
Right.
to make that decision.
The comps, and I think that
Yeah.
that's something that's really, really important for us to keep in mind as a town, that we are now operating within a different group. And this group comes from our town. It's our population. We've changed as a population. And we need to make sure that our schools keep moving forward and achieving and doing well with these changes. I think the other thing that's very challenging, and you'll probably agree with me, is we have to hire very good teachers. Yes, we should hire the best that there are, no question. But that is a pool of a hiring pool that's difficult to get right now. Very
and
competitive.
One of the things that we see, though, in this community and what you see in Chelmsford, that where other districts where maybe things aren't so smoothly run, is everything is timed. So when Dr. Lang and Hirsch and all these other department heads work together, they're like, we need to make sure all of our recs are released at this time, because that is when we'll have the highest availability pool. And because sometimes they're so on things, they'll get something in the day it's due, right? And then, like, we were hiring the project manager for the new school, right? So because they went in a day early, they got a choice of 12 and everybody else gets a choice of 11, right? And so going in and being experienced and understanding how to go after that pool of people, anytime you take a hire in the middle of a year, it's difficult because there's not a lot of teachers, or they're already working. And so there's just a lot of operational experience here, both within the committee and within the operations side.
That's a good point, and of course we've all touched upon this subject now, but we're talking about budgets and money, okay? And up until this fiscal year, because everybody always wants more money, we understand that, but it hasn't been a terribly crucial issue. But this year, at the joint FinCom School Committee Select Board meeting, we got a different message.
We did.
We got a different message. And it was not particularly well received, because nobody wants to hear that we're going to have budget problems. So the town manager, of course, had to structure the budget accordingly, and there was not as much money available to allocate for the fiscal 26 school year as might have otherwise been. Are you folks Are you folks comfortable with how that was managed and how Dr. Lang responded to that situation?
Yes, I am, and I want to. And one of the things that's been really great about the committees we've worked on is that we understand that we're part of a bigger picture. We're part of the town. We're partners. I think Dr. Lang handled it fine. I think at the end of the day, sometimes in town, you know what? Getting bad news, getting punched in the face, is getting punched in the face. And so all of the people in that room have constituents that they have to talk to, and they're like, we have parents, so we find out but the thing that really matters is how do you manage it, right? So we're going to have this issue, and what I do trust is that we're going to come out of it with a plan. Are we going to cancel maybe a capital project? We've been saving money, like I mentioned, over the years. We put all this money away, so if we have problems with special education, there's all these buckets of money now that we can kind of work with. I think a bigger concern we have is going forward, right? There's a new administration. There's some talk about the Department of Education.
You're talking at the national level.
At the national level, right? And so a lot of people think national level doesn't really doesn't necessarily get down. And we could talk more. I'll just wrap it up with this. But there's about $2 million in our district in federal funding right now that's at risk. So we don't know what's going to happen, but school committee is planning for it. Dr. Lang is planning for it, and we're going to figure out what that means if anything, if anything does come down that affects us. So I'll just pause there.
Okay.
Go right ahead, sorry.
Doreen?
Okay. I was just wondering, you said 2 million. I had looked up that in 2022, we got almost 6 million. Why did it go down?
It's more than 2 million.
I know it's more than 2 million.
Oh, okay.
So
All right.
I actually asked for a specific number really around special education, I'm sorry. But no, yeah.
And
so
we're going to be
either way,
getting
6
a
million.
report. I don't know if it's at this next meeting. Joanna's putting together right now a report on the federal funding
Okay.
that we need to be keeping track of and making sure. And if you look back at the report she's been giving on the grants, you're always going to see in that report the actual federal funds, because the way they come to us is through Title I,
Right,
Title III, the different federal laws that exist that we get
Right.
funded for.
Which is why I said that I would be
Yeah.
fiscally responsible and go with the federal laws, not try to
Well,
butt them.
and the state laws, because in the state laws, we are funded by the state as
Yeah,
well.
yeah,
So,
yeah.
I mean, we have to be following whatever the laws are. But we don't have really a federal law on education in the sense that it's not a federal system of education. It is run by the different states. So DESE is our number one look to in terms of regulatory body that we have to follow. And so state funding is very important. So is the federal funding. And more important than anything is our local funding. We pay for the
Yep.
majority of it. Our budget is $75 million. It's more than 75. It's close to 650. And that's a budget that we just approved for this coming year.
Most of it comes from the real estate property tax.
Absolutely, absolutely.
kind of
Now,
town
yeah, so it's a substantial part of the money that we spend in our town, and we realize that. I know that I do, every single time that we're spending money.
But we're
But
spending
this-
it well.
Yes, we try to. At least I
Teachers
know.
are mostly paid less than most of the other communities, though.
It
Well,
depends.
it's not most of the other communities. Again, you have to look at our comps. I think now, in terms of teachers, that at the entry level, we are much more competitive now than we
Okay.
were in the last contract. We are in the middle of negotiating contracts right now again for both teachers and paras, secretaries, and so on. And so we are looking at those various steps and so on. So again, there's a lot of shifts going on right now in our system.
And I wanted to say over the past few years, I've been on the past two and I'm on this teacher contract, so I won't really comment too much on that. But I will say that we have had, one of the ongoing conversations that the committee's had is how are we going to address this gap that we had at the bottom. So if you look at our pay scale, it was always kind of shallow on the light end, and then it was really heavy on the, this is why we have a lot of really long-term teachers though, is because once they get up there and pass a certain level, they're really doing pretty well.
Pretty well, right.
Comparatively,
So they're
right?
they're compensated well up.
Yeah, so the past contract, we did things like, you can do things, with with the pay tables, you can shift tables around in a way to kind of make it work in a way that pushes more of the money down. But again, in a contract though, you always have to remember there's two parties.
Yep.
So there's the school committee side, which we represent the town, and so whatever we go in there with, we're always going to go back and forth. And the great part about the system and why I know it works so well is because after we vote on it, it actually goes out to the union, and then they vote on it, and everybody approves. And we've had an excellent relationship for the past few years on that. So
We haven't really since, it's been a long time, and my wife taught in the system for 40 years. I can't remember a real labor disturbance.
I don't remember one either.
And
I'll even give a lot of credit.
So that says something.
during
the
COVID,
administration, yeah.
during COVID, the union came through. Honestly,
They
unbelievable.
absolutely did, and I witnessed that firsthand because
Yes.
my wife and I suddenly became elementary school teachers.
Yes.
Yeah.
All right, for my
Children.
for my grandchildren.
Yeah.
Thank God my wife actually was an elementary school teacher for many years. And boy, did that give me a window into what was going on. And the thing that impressed me was how quickly the staff
Yes.
adapted
Yeah.
with
Amazing.
absolutely no precedent whatsoever. I mean, you had to be very, very inventive. And just a very quick, funny story. I don't really want to, take up too much time here, but they were going through all of their subject matter, and my granddaughter Violet said, "Well," she says, "we have gym," and I said, "They can't do gym."
Remotely.
Computer. Oh yes, they did.
They did. They
They
did.
did. I was absolutely floored. I said,
Yes.
"Boy, I'll
Yeah.
tell you, that's you talk about out of the box thinking. I mean,
Yes.
that really, I was quite
did gym,
impressed.
100%.
They did gym over the internet.
Yeah.
So there you go.
They did.
Yeah, parents
Yeah.
were heavily involved in that too. And by the way,
Yeah.
thanks to, I mean, that's a really interesting time because I think we're coming into
Yeah.
another unknown time, right? Where we don't know. There's an administration change. We're going to see what happens. But one great thing about that time was this community came together. There were communities that did not come together.
Yes.
And their children suffered, their employees suffered. But we really hunkered down. We did the right thing. And, we had to make
Yes.
some hard choices. A lot of us came in here. I've been here for 9 years. Like, I'm 46. It's crazy, right? But I came here to vote on, field trips. And then, in the 9 years, I've had COVID. I've had all kinds of just, wild, big stuff happen. And
No,
it's-
timing is everything, John.
I know, right? It's been crazy.
But one of the things about COVID really was a strengthener in many ways.
Yes.
Because our committee also could have just broken apart, but it didn't, and it made very difficult decisions at that time. The committee is not the same composition right now.
Right.
Two other members have come on, but it was a very it was a stressful time, and I think going hybrid and making that decision to go hybrid was not a vote by, not every member voted for it, but it was a decision in the end to go that way, but it put a lot more work. We knew that. The people who voted for hybrid, we knew that the administration and our staff and our families were all going to have to work so much harder in order to make that a reality. And the fact that we voted that way and that's how we operated allowed students to return as quickly as possible and bringing more and more in as quickly as possible. That was essential. And the other thing that I think it did is it showed me, it really did, that Dr. Lang's commitment is overall to the student.
Yeah.
That showed it to me 100%. There may be things I disagree with him on, but the one thing that I always see in him is that the student is the end, and that they're our customer. It's not anybody else. It's not even the parents or the community or anyone.
That's a
It is the
good way to look
student.
at it, I think. Yeah.
And so I think that that for me really proved it.
Yeah.
So you've sort of answered this question, but I'm going to bring it up again anyway. In terms of the school departments, and that would be the committee and the administration together, the overall relationship with the town administrative group, the town manager and his
Yeah.
people, and again, Doreen, I don't mean to pick on you, you're because you haven't been on the committee.
Right.
But you're somebody who's lived in town and you've paid attention and you've watched. All right, so you have an opinion on this too. So the overall interaction between town and school, I can just tell you, years and years ago, it wasn't good. And I was on the select board 20 years ago, and the relationship was bad, and I mean bad, okay? And there were a few of us that worked very, very hard to fix it. And I think we moved the needle a little bit, but what I see on the outside, I see a vastly improved situation from what it was 15, 20 years ago. Your thoughts? Go ahead, Doreen.
Well, I'm really not sure what the position is with the town manager, because like you say, I'm not on the board. But I know our town manager and the superintendent as well, they're both very educated and great men that are, looking out for the town of Chelmsford. So it's my hope that they would work together, to get the best possible funding, budgeting, whatever it is that we need from them for the town of Chelmsford.
So you, running for school committee, looking at that situation, you have confidence in both men.
I do. I have confidence that they will debate and talk over things and figure out hopefully the right course for Chelmsford to go in.
Okay, that's good. And then now you two have experience in this area. So.
Well, I think one of the good things at that tri-board meeting where we heard that the revenues were just not going to be enough to give us the usual $3 million each year that we've been getting. And the conclusion of that meeting was that Dr. Lang and Mr. Cohen would meet again, and Paul Cohen would meet again before we had the numbers finalized and before our budgets came out. I think that was very good. And their meeting, the result of their meeting, they figured out ways to work it so that we could do this. And John's mentioned a couple of times about Dr. Lang having some reserves. Essentially, the decision to pay in advance at the end of each year some of these special tuitions that go out of our district so that they're paid in advance for the coming year allows us then to work with whatever comes in the current year and deal with anything that, because special ed is always somehow what throws off a budget for the schools.
Exactly.
You never know.
We don't know how many kids are going to be in the system at any given point in
Kindergarten.
time.
We
one of
don't
those.
know.
Oh, yeah.
I quickly, I don't really, you nailed that. I think I've seen Dr. Lang and Paul Cohen work together for years over all kinds of big things during COVID.
Yeah.
We've worked with the offices just the other day. They came in last year. They came in and they asked, we need to put a pipe. And they were actually going to go down your main road. But, the town comes and says, hey, instead of us ripping up half of the town, do you mind if we go across town property? And all of us were like, absolutely, right? So I think, no, I don't know. I'm glad we don't have that experience because I bet the students suffered. I bet the town suffered. And I'm glad that we don't have that now.
I mean, you see it today in other school systems.
Oh, 100%.
And I won't mention any names, but the place begins with L, okay?
And our strategic plan for the town, I think, Sue McKinnon on our board is the rep that goes to those meetings. But she's reporting back regularly, and we're hearing that the school system is one of the most important parts of the whole strategic plan for the town.
Yes.
Because having a great school system makes a difference on property values and on everything else. And
Absolutely right.
the greatest equity people have in the town is the value of their property.
Yep.
That's right. So speaking about money, in some communities, and not everybody knows this, but in some communities, school committee members are actually paid. And we're talking, it's not a huge amount of money, but it's more than what you would call a stipend. So for example, in the city of Lowell, school committee members are paid $12,500 a year.
Wow.
I think the chairman gets a little bit more, okay? Or it's not the chairman. In Lowell, they have a different system of government. So the mayor of the city, who is the head of the city council, is also the chair of the school.
See, yeah.
That's my opinion.
bonkers.
Bad system.
Yeah.
But that's the way they do it. That's the way all planning said. So he gets obviously more compensation. But a regular school committee member makes $12,500 a year, and there are other towns and cities where the members are compensated. So how do you folks feel about that?
Can I go?
Yeah, go ahead.
Okay, I don't believe that our school committee should be on the school's payroll. Not being paid to be a school committee member, it makes you totally objective, and you don't feel obligated to any one person or any one department or anyone, anything, because you're not getting paid for it. This is a volunteer position. You're going there because you really care about the town, you really care about the school system, you really care about whatever position you're running for, you care about the town. So you're more likely to not do anything funky. Like you said, with the school department in Lowell having the school committee chair plus the, what was it?
The mayor of the
The
city.
mayor,
Right.
both on the same boards, and getting paid for both? No, that's just wrong.
Okay.
I'm a hard no. I've always thought it should be a volunteer position. When I first moved to Chelmsford, I moved here and I was like, hey, there's a problem, and then I ran. And I think it is a little bit harder for parents, right? You got little kids, young kids. That was a challenge that I had to face. I think, Maria, when you came on, you had high school kids, which is probably a different challenge. Now college kids coming up. Congratulations, by the way. But yeah, I think at the end of the day, the answer is no. I don't think they should get paid. I can't speak for Lowell. I think in Chelmsford we shouldn't. I like the way it's worked. I'm on the same boat. I'm happy with the way it is. That's the short version.
The argument you always get for paying board members is if you don't offer some compensation, there are folks that would not be able to do it because they could not afford to give up the time, pay for babysitters and so forth. But
The meetings are at night, aren't they?
in 46 years plus years of living in Chelmsford, I really haven't observed that is a particular problem in town, but again, I don't know. You know, there could be some people who feel that way.
I don't agree with it. I think I think the word I've heard was affluent, right? You had to be affluent to run, like,
Correct.
right? So I'm just going to be real honest. When I moved to Chelmsford, I mean, I just bought a house and I ran, and other people have run. Diana's run; she's my age. So like, people have kids and they're able to run. I don't think money is and the people that do run, because there is no money, you know what the motivation is. Because I actually think we used to have a stipend in town. That actually was linked to the town benefits and pension, and it became a problem, wasn't it? We didn't have a,
School committee did not participate.
but it was the
select board. The select board got stipend, and the board of assessors got stipend.
yeah, and they got stipend and ended up hooking them into. I just think it's better off. I think the people that show up want to do the work because they want to do the work.
Right, exactly.
So having served on that board for the financial institution, a credit union, it's the same thing. The board of directors is all volunteers.
All volunteer.
Unlike on banks, if you sit on a bank's board, you're going to get paid. So that argument's always came up. The other part of the argument was, the extra number of people that might come into the pool of potential candidates if they're paid. Personally, I've always done it because I like the service component of it. I really, truly, in service, I think, means sometimes not being paid, not being compensated in the regular monetary way. But it is a commitment of time. Anyone who is going to do this, if you're going to go to those meetings that you're going to be the delegate for, and so on, and you do it religiously, where you really do it, you're looking at a time commitment that can be 10 to 15 hours a month, sometimes more.
Well, that's just the meetings.
nothing.
I mean,
Depending if there's gonna be-
you've got study time. A lot of
Right.
reading has to be
Yeah.
done.
Right.
I would argue, and certainly I can speak from experience from select board. I spent a lot of time, but even at the time, I always felt that a really dedicated school committee person who really, really was so committed to the job, probably that was a harder gig from a preparation standpoint than even being on the select board.
Well, I think if you look at a school committee, right, and you look at a school committee in Chelmsford, what are we? We're like, what percentage of the budget are we? We're such a huge part of the budget.
Yeah, we're over 50%.
Yeah,
of
we're
the town's
a huge
budget.
chunk of the
If
budget.
you take the if you add back all of the benefits,
Yeah.
Right.
because we account for that
higher than
separately,
that.
it's almost 65%.
But listen, now here's the other half of that, though. We're also the largest employer in Chelmsford.
Yep.
We service the most people in Chelmsford, the students, staff-wise. I mean, we're hiring, both administrative, teacher, technical staff, all kinds of staff. We have the most buildings. We have the largest capital projects. Every single dollar that comes into a school, people don't realize this, all the money that comes in literally just goes back out into the communities. So, so I forget what the question was, but where were we?
We were talking about people getting paid and serving on the school committee.
Yeah.
So,
I personally get a lot of pleasure out of serving in the sense of you learn so much.
Yeah, that's what it was.
Yep.
Being involved in the school committee, you meet many people. You actually you'll be stopped in the parking lot of the store. Hi, I just saw you at this meeting.
and you have no idea who that person is.
Oh, hi. How are you?
They saw you on TV, right?
Right.
Supermarket's the big
Yeah,
one.
Yeah, but
Right.
it's good because you're not closing yourself off and you're open to what's going on in the town and the changes that are going on in the town, and it starts with the kids.
Yeah.
And when you go into one of the classrooms, it always amazes me. You go into a classroom in one of our schools, especially at the elementary and middle school level, you will see visually, okay, what you don't see maybe at a town meeting.
Oh, no.
Because visually, we have changed quite a bit as a population in our town. And people sometimes don't realize that. And this is where you learn to, be dealing with everyone and everyone's needs. And make sure that in the end, everybody can achieve at the highest possible level. It's a challenge, and it's a great challenge.
Well, that's good. Well, we're closing in on our time, so I did want to give each of you one more crack at the voter. So, John, I'm going to start with you.
All right.
There's your camera.
All right. Everybody, John Moses, running for Chelmsford School Committee for my 4th term. I will tell you that I've been forever grateful for the work that I've already done and will continue to do if you give me your vote on April 1st?
April 1st.
1st, 2025. At least I hope you'll get one of your 2 votes. Thank you.
Okay. Maria.
Okay. Well, for me, it would be a 3rd term. And I would ask you to consider voting Maria Santos because I promise to you that I will give it my 100% and then some, that I will make sure I understand the issues that are being brought before me, that I realize how it impacts each individual in our town, not only the children, their parents, the people who are in their lives, but everybody in our town. Because the quality of our education system, it makes a big difference in who we are as a community for Chelmsford. I would like to ask you to consider voting Maria Santos. Thank you.
Okay. Doreen,
Hi,
wrap it up.
Yep, my name's Doreen Deshler, and I ask for your vote on April 1st, 2025 for school committee. I will work hard to be an advocate for you, the school, because I know it's hard. You're working all the time, and you got your kids that you're taking care of. But I know you need an advocate, so I will promise to be your advocate. And I just ask for your vote on April 1st. Thank you.
Okay, I think that's very clear, and all 3 of you have made a good pitch, and I think we've had a very good discussion here. And I would remind the audience out there, again, the election occurs on April 1st. Please don't attach any significance to the fact that it's April Fool's Day.
Right.
It has nothing to do with any of the candidates you see before you, okay? And this happens every so often, okay? Of course, we have many different ways of voting. I think we've gone through it enough times over the last 7 or 8 years that people are aware that they can vote in person on the day. Hopefully, if you elect to vote early, You've made those arrangements with the town clerk. If you have any questions in that regard, I would suggest that you call the town clerk's office, or you can go up on the town website and access the town clerk's website for any information on voting mechanics,
Mail-in.
precinct locations, and so on and so forth. So with that, we're out of time, and I want to thank our candidates again.
Thank you.
Thank you, Sam.
Thank you.
Appreciate
Thank you,
it.
Sam.
Thank you.
That's
Thank
a wrap.
you.
That was great. Thanks, Sam.